So I'll be talking about something which is not really a story, but the philosophy behind a story. So I'll be talking about a real action plan for breaking of stereotypes. Something that we all can emulate, something that we all can learn looking at some amazing stories, something that we can actually do in our own lives. So that's what I'm going to be talking about. So before we move on to going to the action plan, it's important to understand. For me, the approach to solving or doing anything about anything has always been to understand that thing. Without understanding, we cannot really possibly consciously grapple that thing. So we need to understand what are stereotypes. At the base, stereotypes are nothing but perceptive beliefs. The beliefs which are held by a majority of people. So your parents want you to become engineers because most people believe that as engineers you're going to have a successful career. As simple as that. Okay? So perceptive beliefs which are opinion based, which are held by a maximum number of people. That's the first thing that needs to be understood. The second thing is that it serves a purpose. Every stereotype serves a purpose. That purpose is that each and every day we are provided with such horrendous amount of data by this world in front of our brain that we really need to compartmentalize each and every thought. That's what our brain does. We compartmentalize and we create these convenient shortcuts to have a predictive value in life. So if I want to know about India, I look at what most Indians do. Say for example in America, most Americans look at most Indians working in IT industry. So they think, okay, India is a country with people having excellent IT skills. So that's the stereotype in America. Now, why does the stereotype exist in America? The reason simple is that it provides a predictive value for them to know something about India. As simple as that. That's the purpose of stereotypes. Now we move on to addressing a myth. And that myth is that stereotypes are false. That's not true. In fact, barring the most ridiculous stereotypes essentially have some amount of truth in them. Which is why they become stereotypes. If they didn't have any truth in them, they would be completely dismissed by our logical brain. Okay? So we need to accept that there is some amount of truth in stereotypes. Now, if there is some amount of truth in stereotypes, what exactly is the problem with them? Right? The problem isn't the percentage of verity. The problem is that they present an incomplete picture. They do not give you a complete idea of whatever it is that you're talking about while claiming that they give you a complete idea. So believing that India is a country of computer engineers and doctors doesn't really give you a clear idea as to what India is all about. It gives you an incomplete picture. That is the problem with stereotypes. That's the first problem with stereotypes. The second problem is what starts as a generalization quickly risks becoming into overgeneralization. Right? So, especially that happens with negative stereotypes. When you look at a negative stereotype, say for example that India is a country of snake charmers. It's a negative stereotype about India. You exaggerate that stereotype and that tends to completely distort your perception of India. So that's the second problem, the flip side of stereotypes. What starts as generalization quickly can become overgeneralization and distort your perception. So we've understood that there are myths about stereotypes. We've understood they serve a purpose. Now we move on to why should we challenge stereotypes. We don't have to challenge stereotypes to create a significant difference to the whole world. If that happens, well and good. If that doesn't happen, still fine. We need to challenge stereotypes for personal growth so that we don't see a limited picture of anything. So that we get to live a fuller and more nuanced life. That's the reason why each of us should aim to challenge stereotypes. Now we move on to the most interesting part of my talk, and that is how are we actually going to challenge stereotypes. Okay? And I use my words extremely carefully. I say challenge. I don't say break stereotypes. Okay, and I'll come to that towards the end. I say challenge stereotypes. How do you challenge stereotypes? You've seen some amazing stories today. You've heard some amazing stories today. I'm sure everyone has read about famous people, people who are great entrepreneurs, people who are innovators, who've really broken their boundaries and gone beyond and done something. Everyone knows about such people. The question or the important question to ask is there anything that we can learn from them and emulate in our own lives? Is there a pattern that we can identify? Is there something that we can learn from them? And I believe that there is a pattern, there is a technique which if we learn, we can do the same thing in our lives. And that technique is what I would like to call as the I technique. That is a term that I would use, the I technique. Okay? So the first I in the I technique represents your I. It represents a perspective. Okay? So how do you really get a fuller picture picture. Now we know that the problem with stereotypes isn't that they're wrong, but they're incomplete. So how do you get a complete picture? By gaining a perspective in life. Now it's very easy for me to say that gain a perspective in life. Everyone says that. But how do you actually come about to gain a perspective? I'll tell you how you don't gain a perspective first. And that is by not getting or not gathering data. Say for example, most people would tell you, okay, you believe that India is a country of computer engineers. All you have to do is go on a wiki page of India and figure out what else India does. Right? So you get a fuller picture of India. With the advent of information technology, information literally clicks away. So you can easily gain more perspectives. But do you really see that happening in the world? The answer to that is no. The more information you have, the more you tend to cling to your beliefs. Even more. Right? So how do you actually gain a perspective? It is not by gathering more data. You gain a perspective by being open. And being open to what? Being open to be proved wrong. That is the most important thing to understand. You have to be open to be proved wrong. When you cling to your belief, you are defensive. You don't want to be proved wrong. So you cling more. Right? So you have to be open to be proved wrong. Now how do you be open to be proved wrong? You can be open to be proved wrong by doing just one thing. And that is a simple thing. That is when you listen to a particular thing, when any idea comes to you, all you have to do is you have to understand it. Your approach towards that idea has to be to understand it and not to respond or react to it. If you wish to understand the idea, you will understand it, you will not respond or react to it, so there won't be any conflict as such. You look at an idea, you understand it, you either choose to believe it or you don't believe in it, but there's no conflict. When you understand a particular thing, the first thing that happens is judgment disappears. You don't judge it as wrong or right. You look at it to understand it, you don't judge it. What happens when you don't judge it? When you don't judge a particular thing, you accept it. Doesn't mean you believe in it. There's a difference between accepting that idea as a belief and believing in it. Don't believe in it, you can just accept it. When you accept it, conflict disappears. When conflict disappears, that stereotype doesn't hold power over you. You are in charge. You look at each stereotype, you understand it, you change it, you move on. Stereotypes are constantly changing within you. They don't have any hold over you, you're not clinging to it. So, the first I represents a perspective. You have to be open to be proved wrong. You can do that by listening to understand and not to respond or react. That's the first part. Now we come to the second most important part, and that's the second I, the pronoun I. And I'm going to make a statement now, and that statement isn't your regular motivational speech statement, okay? It's the truth. That truth is, I am the only hurdle in my path of challenging stereotypes. It is no one else. It is only me. So, when I say that I am the only hurdle in challenging stereotypes in my own path, what do I really mean? What I essentially mean is, let's look at it from the perspective of an example. All of you would find yourself in a situation where you're at a fork in life. Let's say most of you are college students, let's say, and I'm sure most of you would relate to this, that you want to be a singer or you want to be a cook, but your parents want you to be an engineer. Okay? Or let's say you join an IT company, you get placed, you have this amazing idea of a startup, but you don't know when to invest or when to take a break and start your own business. So you're always at a fork in life where you have to choose, right? So what I'm about to tell you is that you always have a choice. That's the most important thing. You would like to believe that you do not have a choice and that you're helpless in a situation, but you always have a choice. Now suppose you are really in a position where you have to choose between either trying to become a singer or a cook or doing what your parents say and become an engineer. If you choose the former, what happens? You try and do what you want, your parents may cut you off, they may be disappointed, and you have to make your own path. What happens if you choose to become an engineer? They probably will be happy, you will move ahead. End of the day, you may either discover that you really like it or you don't like it, whatever it may be. Okay? In either of the situations, the most important thing to understand is whatever it is that you choose, you are choosing it, no matter how helpless you think you are in that situation. Okay? And the basic underlying principle that you need to understand is that whenever you make a choice, it is with all of the consequences. There is only one difference between people who challenge stereotypes and people who don't challenge stereotypes. And that difference is when people challenge stereotypes, they accept the situation with all of its consequences. The consequences are a package deal. You want to start your own business, there are going to be pitfalls. As simple as that. You don't want those pitfalls is where you come to the midway, where you indulge into what I would like to call as wishful thinking. Where you want the convenient consequences, but you don't want the bitter consequences. Right? That possibly can't happen. It's like saying, I want the ocean, I don't want the sand. Not going to happen. You want the ocean, you're going to get the sand. Right? As simple as that. Once you accept that fact, then it's not really about challenging stereotypes. It boils down to just taking a decision in life. And that decision will be based on what seems worth the effort. So whatever is your end result, say you want to become an entrepreneur, if that seems to be worth the effort that you need to take and worth the number of failures that you would encounter, then you would do it. If you think that you don't really want to take those many number of risks, then you don't do it. In either of the cases, you are exercising a choice. So you don't get to blame anyone. That's the reason why I say that you are the only hurdle in your own path of challenging stereotypes. Okay, that's the second I that needs to be understood. If you follow these two things, if you understand the purpose of gaining a perspective, and if you understand how you are the only thing that can possibly become a hurdle in your path of challenging stereotypes, then you can break or you can come to challenge stereotypes completely. Now, I would like to conclude with a very interesting thought. That thought is, and this is what I feel, that there isn't really any such thing called as breaking stereotypes. You don't break them. Because when you say I'm going to break stereotype, it creates a fallacy that one fine day there are going to be no stereotypes in the world, that we'll break them all. Right? That's never going to happen. As long as there are human beings, there are going to be beliefs. So this thought may seem as a limiting thought, that we may never really break stereotypes. Actually, this thought is quite a liberating thought, because it tells us that no matter where we reach as humans, there is always going to be a stage where we need to challenge more, when we need to change more, when we need to mold ourselves more and challenge, so on and so forth, go on, evolving. So that's the thought I would like to conclude with, that we don't break stereotypes, we challenge stereotypes, and there is no limit to that challenge. Thank you.